Thank you very much for the Association of Bahá'í Studies for having organized the seminar. It's really amazing, the range of topics that have been brought together, and also the experience of being here with each of you. So the topic that I thought of addressing today is from fragmentation to integration and the role of law in the age of AI. Especially because we're so surrounded by technology. We're so surrounded by artificial intelligence. It just happened that yesterday I got a letter from the school where my children go to, and it was saying that now they're banning all the smartphones from school, and the parents were so happy. Yeah, so this is actually the second school that's close to my home, and I was just thinking, wow, look at this. They are really understanding the impact of social media, of technology and artificial intelligence in the lives of young children. So, this is a very timely moment in history, because 8 years ago we had the UN Charter. 40 years ago, the promise of world peace was delivered. So imagine after 40 years that the UN Charter was drafted, the promise of world peace was delivered. And when we think about justice, I thought about this paragraph that is actually repetitively included in some statements from the Bahá'í international community, and that is that it's actually one of my favorite ones, is justice is one power that can translate the dawning consciousness of humanity's oneness into a collective will through which the necessary structures of global community life can be confidently erected. So if we think that if justice is the one power that can translate the dawning consciousness of humanity, so it's now at the moment that we're forming this consciousness, this collective consciousness, and then all of this can be actually captured into a collective will. When we think about the will, we think about something that's written, right? We think about law, we think about justice, process. So, and which the necessary structures of global community life can be confidently erected. So I will start by mentioning this point, and then going through the promise of world peace. And before even going there, but thinking that Shoghi Effendi, in also being quoted in a very recent letter from the Universal House of Justice, mentioned that we're asked to refine our characters and hone our minds to meet the challenges of building a new world. So this is the call to us. It's about us refining our characters and honing our minds. And he urges us not to be despair when encountering the problems of a nascent and rapidly evolving community. Then we go back to the promise of world peace, and we see about the elements that are brought in terms of legal and political economic standards, and where the legal standards and doctrines, they bring some fundamental principles. When we see that law as a servant of humanity, we actually think, wow, look, it's actually being mentioned that for legal standards, political and economic theories are solely designed to safeguard the interests of humanity as a whole. So this is the purpose of law. This is the purpose of having this type of codes, of systems. And also that our international law and governance structures, we're reminded that peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice, upheld by laws and governance that serve the whole human family. So if we think as well that these legal standards and political doctrines have value only when they safeguard the interests of all, but not when they safeguard and preserve the privileges of a few, we see that the system that we have at the moment is not working, and we understand more the flaws. Of course, we're not surprised to see that the word technology is being included in a letter from 40 years ago from the Promise of World Peace, when we know that there is so much that is going on at the moment in terms of the advancement of technology. The Promise of World Peace did not state, the Universal House of Justice did not state about artificial intelligence, but it's a point of so much happening in the world that we can also see the connection with artificial intelligence. But the Universal House of Justice refers explicitly to technology in the Promise of World Peace and also in the Century of Light from 2001. And Abdul Baha's writings especially repeatedly affirm that inventions and discoveries should serve unity, peace, and human welfare. So if we think about these 3 points, unity, peace, and human welfare, why are we actually going to do any inventions or discoveries if we don't have that purpose in mind, that intended purpose? So the intended purpose needs to be there. And also the Universal House of Justice emphasized the importance of deep community-rooted work characterized by participation, purpose, and collective will. So again, the collective will. We need to have a collective will. So some of the points here that are mentioned are related to the scientific and technological advances occurring in the unusually blessed century, portend a great surge forward in social evolution of the planet and indicate the means by which the practical problems of humanity may be solved. What is AI? I'm sure a lot of you know what AI is, but I thought of giving you a refresher of what it is. But it is really the ability of machines, of software to perform complex tasks that normally require human intelligence. Now, it can be quite intelligent, as we know. It can reason, learn, make decisions, and have any problem solving. There are different types of AIs. There's AI, predictive AI, which predicts an event that's going to happen in the future or something that has happened in the past. It helps us to understand what the next steps are. There's generative AI that helps with different types of forms, such as text, visual, audio. There's narrow AI, there's general AI, and this general AI is still not in place. So it's something for us to watch out. So it's the artificial general intelligence does not exist yet, but it would match human intelligence and can be applied to any mental human tasks. So there is much more for us to see in place. And we're going to see some of the guiding questions that I'm going to be focusing on. So the first one is, what are the main forces in today's world in the age of AI? How is AI reshaping law and governance, or is it the opposite way? Happening whilst obtaining inputs of people with different backgrounds and skills, given there could exist inequalities and unfair bias in models. And then what are some common principles and attitudes of a conceptual framework as a bedrock of strategies for collective consciousness? How do we intend to use AI's outcomes? And are we still using human agency? So these are the 4 questions. But I thought of, before even going to the next slide, mentioning about models. What models are? So, ChatGPT or any type of Gemini, any type of software that is trained to learn a skill is a model. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some models. And it's important for us to think, is the model assigning people to categories or social behavior? Or could the model manipulate human behavior or decisions causing harm or not causing harm, but manipulating? Can the model be used for the purpose of high-risk AI systems So these are some of the questions that we're actually going to go through as well. But also thinking that the AI developer is like a painter. The more we share about the vision of Bahá'u'lláh, the more we learn about what that vision is, we will all see that we can be painters and we can paint the new painting, but in accordance to the attitudes, approaches, and the frameworks that are being formed in our minds. And so the model will have exactly the qualities that the painter wants in the painting. If the painter has biases, what will the painting be? Full of biases as well, the reflection of that painter. So in this case, it's going to be the model. So we see exactly what is happening, why we have actually biases. So what are the main forces in today's world, in the age of AI? So we have progress advances at the alternating rhythm of crisis and victories. So it's the alternating rhythm. Each crisis prepares humanity for the next stage in the evolutionary development. Isn't that so amazing? We see crisis usually in such a bad way, but when we look into this and we see that we're actually part of a whole process, and in each stage, a generation has been at the forefront of change in the world. So we know that AI can be used for the benefit or detriment of humanity. And we know as well that we're not exempt of all this all these crises that happen in the world. And we're actually very involved with artificial intelligence in different things that we do in our daily lives because of social media, because of going to a Zoom call. So we're also aware that, I don't know if you have seen, but this week there has been some news. Actually, a lot of news have happened this week, as we know. But one of them is that we have had the first AI minister to fight corruption. And it's this AI minister is not a minister for AI, is an AI minister, which means there is a pixels and codes empowered by AI minister. Okay, so that minister is going to be a minister for Albania, for the country of Albania. It could have been for any country. This is the first one. We don't know how many will come. And it's not a man, it's a woman. And her name is Diela. That's her here. And she will handle all the public procurement of the country. That's a big task. So there are lots of principles that the EU AI Act and the UK AI principles bring. And one of them is about accountability. So if we think about accountability, and I'm not just mentioning about this specific minister, but anything that could happen in a similar way. But for us to start thinking, for an AI minister, we need to think, how do we intend the outcome of the model to be used? Can the model's outcome be easily misused? For example, used for a different purpose? What's the responsibility of the AI developers if the outcomes are not used as originally intended, causing harm to people? And this is one of the principles, which is the accountability principle. Then there are other ones. There is human oversight principle, which is how much human input is required to provide effective governance and at which point in the process. So we will know which time of the process there will be human oversight. So we are seeing that we cannot just really create models and feed them with unstructured data, just feed them, which has bias and discrimination baked in them. So there's really like a very thorough process that needs to be in place. And we see that there are lots of antagonisms as well. You see that this woman, it was actually an AI-generated picture of a woman. And we can see that the same technology that has helped the very technology that could empower indigenous women to defend their land, that's the first picture, is used in boardrooms thousands of miles away to trade carbon credits they never see. So so we see that there are lots of different equality and bias aspects, and antagonisms with these forces of fragmentation. We see that there is like overwhelming information, there is growing economic, political, and social inequalities, polarized ideologies, algorithmic bias, conflict, and war, online, offline. And profit is beyond human costs. So prejudice is perpetuated. There's concentration of power and influence, which manipulated and manipulates public perception and corrupt institutional decision-making at all levels. Social relationships lose depth and friendship becomes a commodity that is negotiated. Benefits accrue to a few while others can barely survive due to appearances, instant gratification, individualism. Fundamental values such as solidarity and mutual support are replaced and very easily replaced. So we're going to understand now the opposite, which is a much happier picture for our souls. So this is actually a part of a letter from the Baha'i international community. There are two statements that the Baha'i international community has written in terms of technology. One in 2019, which is this statement, technology values and the shaping of social reality, and the other one in 2023, and that was related to women and technology. But look at how the depth of these paragraphs. It says the overall vision guiding pathways of technological development and use cannot come from technology itself. It must be informed by essential ideals, spiritual insight, and actual participation practice that promote the common good. So it cannot come just for technology itself. So we cannot just create technology just for creating it. It needs to have a purpose, why we're actually using that technology. And it needs to emerge as a natural outgrowth of community building processes. Sometimes we think it's the opposite way. We have to, first we have to develop our neighborhood first we have to develop the technology and then we have to bring to the neighborhood. But have we tried opposite? That first we develop our neighborhoods, we understand the regions, and then we think, well, it's a natural process. Then we can think about the collective identification of needs by affected populations and refine through an iterative process of learning. So we're all learning this process, because then it becomes a community building process as well. Rigorous processes of technological assessments at all levels of society provide the only basis for ensuring that technology is used in a manner that advances individual and collective well-being. So we need to have guardrails in each moment of the process, raising the capacity of individuals, of communities, and institutions to make appropriate technological choices is crucial. And why is it so crucial? Because imagine if later on, this same technology that created the AI minister, if there is a problem, who is actually going to replace that technology? Yes? Then we see that there is a recommendation of a global AI data framework, or consultancies and private sectors. They have developed different types of books, of methodologies to try to see how AI can be used for good. I actually participated in an AI for Good conference. It was amazing about 2 months ago. It was prepared by the UN. And then the Governing AI for Humanity, which is an excellent guideline as well. And I will also bring the BIC statements that I mentioned about, and it was so timely. The NSA, the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the UK, provided this week this very timely letter that I have read, and I have also embedded the learnings here. So AI can significantly support from agriculture, using AI to monitor crop health and better climate monitoring, to malnutrition detection in terms of healthcare. It can enhance different types of mitigation of climate change, and can also even help in terms of finding out if there is like a defective, an illegal fishing activity that is happening somewhere in the world. So there are ways that we can actually use. The role of law. So it must be an instrument of peace and unity. And the Baha'i vision of peace highlights that no lasting peace is possible without justice and shared values. Law in this context becomes the framework that restrains destructive tendencies, facilitates cooperation, establishes trust. And we can also see that there are materialistic assumptions about the human nature that are embedded in these models. And the BIC statement warns that the digital technologies often embody these assumptions, and that the law can actually counterbalance what is actually being brought by these technologies. And one is to embed ethical and spiritual values of trustworthiness, moderation, justice, responsibility into governance of AI. The other one is guiding metrics of progress away from GDP only measures towards holistic well-being. And the other one is ensuring AI extends human dignity rather than undermining it. So how do we build this bridge through laws? Actually, dear Nabil, you mentioned something about the bridges as well and reminded me of this slide. So law is the architecture of trust. It is what allows AI to serve peace rather than power. Law must serve three roles: protection, participation, peace building. And it really connects technological innovation with moral order, on which a stable world civilization depends as a safeguard of human rights and human potential. So then the human agency is not lost in this process. This is very interesting. So in terms of EU AI Act and the AI Act principles in the UK, AI principles in the UK, there are some relevant elements from this AI framework that is being built so far. And look at this, how interesting. We're seeing that in a very natural way, the forces of integration are also coming into place when we see so much forces of disintegration. But legal and regulatory compliance, but some specific ones that I would like to mention here are accuracy. How have accuracy thresholds been determined? Will the algorithms produce accurate results with each new data set? Or in terms of transparency, what processes will be in place to enable traceability of decisions? Each decision being made, how can we actually know who made that decision? And do users interact directly with the model, or is the asset used to detect emotions? So all of these are very valid. And then the part of security and privacy, that how have we considered the external, physical, digital, and other risks that may occur? And what is the societal impact that this technology is going to have, and well-being? What is the purpose of having created this technology? Is it a race? If it is an AI race, where are we racing to? So if it has a societal impact, what is the purpose of utilizing the model? If the model has an intended purpose and works as intended, what could be the real and perceived impacts and implications, both positively and negatively? So as you see, there are so many questions, and there are many answers as well being tried to work out by scientists, and really trying to understand what is a framework that can be created, but how special it is that we have a learning mode that we have into place from the Universal House of Justice, that is by constant action, reflection, consultation, and study. we create these visions and strategies that we are really examining. And as tasks are accomplished, obstacles removed, resources multiplied, and lessons learned, modifications are made in goals and methods. So it's step by step of the process, especially for the scientists and the AI developers. And this is my last slide. It's how do we intend to use AI's outcomes? And are we still using human agency? Are we leaving everything to be automated? Are we actually, how do we encourage ourselves to think that the social dimensions of the area that I am analyzing, that I'm actually working with the neighborhood, how can that area benefit when I apply the spiritual principles and the vision of Bahá'u'lláh? Thank you.